The time we've been here for so long. That's a good sign. All right, everyone, we're going to call this meeting to order. We're going to start the meeting with the invocation to be followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Commissioner Mike Stewart has volunteered to say the invocation for us this evening. Please rise.
Please join me. Our Heavenly Father, again, we thank you for this opportunity to come and serve in this capacity as commissioners. Lord, I just ask for your wisdom and guidance tonight to be bestowed upon each and every one that's up here. Lord, let us remember what we do carries us forward for the years to come. And Lord, help. I ask that you just provide us wisdom again. And Lord, just bless each one that's here tonight. And I ask these things in your holy name. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, everybody, we're getting ready to approve our agenda for the evening. Are there any changes to the agenda? I have one item. We're going to table item 12 to a future meeting. So just make a note of that on the consent agenda.
I want to add an item under discussion tonight to talk about get my terms right, the Restore Act money.
Okay.
And I'm asking the board to approve you to send a letter.
Okay, perfect. Additional items that need to be pulled or tabled or added?
Mr. Chairman, we have one add-on item that was distributed to the board members, requesting board approval to schedule and advertise a public hearing for your annual resolution of intent. And then I'm asking that item tab 9 on your consent agenda just be pulled for discussion.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I have several very brief announcements, and on the consent agenda I would like to pull items 9, 11, and 19.
You want to pull
very quick.
What items again, to make sure I get them right?
9, 11, and 19.
Okay. Any other changes?
Yes, I'd also like to add the last item under general business, a FEMA update, please.
Was that
Motion to approve with noted changes?
Second.
We have a motion and a second with noted changes. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. There's our agenda. Up first this evening is a public hearing. I want to remind everyone, if you'd like to speak at tonight's meeting and you're not under awards or presentations, to make sure you filled out a card. If you want to speak for any other item this evening, the cards are up here with Katie, and it'll allow you 3 minutes to speak on the subject that you have requested to speak on. This first item is request board approval to conduct public hearing and adopt an ordinance repealing the Wakulla County Airport Committee. Ms. Encinosa?
I'll go ahead and make a motion to approve, conduct a public hearing, and vote to adopt the proposed ordinance repealing the Wakulla County Airport Committee.
So we have a motion and a second?
A second.
Well, we have a motion and a second already.
Third, Jerry.
Yeah. Is there any? This is something we need to do. We've had the conversation on this in the past. A lot of board discussion on it. Is there any further discussion that you need from us, Heather?
No.
Are there any citizens' cards, Katie?
No.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Passes unanimously. This is going to move us into awards and presentations this evening. We have a lot of awards and presentations this evening. About 8, so I'm going to encourage everybody to say what you need to say, but make sure you keep it concise. Brevity is always appreciated. Our first item this evening is Commissioner Stewart is presenting a certificate of heroism. Commissioner Stewart?
Thank you. Come down here. I'd like to ask Kirsten Simmons come up and her friend Alyssa Boyer. And while they're coming, I want to say that I want y'all to come right up here in the front, and I'm going to talk to you, and so the public can see you. You know, we don't get to do this very often, and it's with great honor. This was dropped in my lap last week, and as soon as I saw what Dad had wrote, your father had wrote about her, you know, I had to do something quickly, and I knew that this happened back in '09, and I want to just read a paragraph of what Mr. Boyer wrote to the Honorable Alan Boyd, who took no action, and then one of the former commissioners, and tonight we're going to fix the record. But here's what one paragraph said. Without hesitation and a total disregard for her safety and well-being, Miss Simmons, on our left here, dove in. They were boating on the Wakulla River. or canoeing. Though there were many perils ranging from alligators, poison snakes to underlying currents, and the fact that she could not see Alyssa, she found my daughter on the bottom and swam her to shore in safety. Please bear in mind that these children were 14 years old at the time. Well, they're not 14 years old anymore, but we want to catch up here in time and recognize you for the act of heroism that you did. And we want to give you the certificate of heroism. And it's presented to Kirsten Simmons for extraordinary actions performed on August 29, 2009, which through her disregard of personal safety resulted in saving the life of Alyssa Boyer. And whereas on behalf of the Wakulla County Board of County Commissioners, this certificate is hereby conferred to honor and recognize your attentive and brave actions presented October 15, 2012, and signed by our chairman, Alan Brock. Let's give him a hand.
Thank you, Commissioner Stewart, making us all, raising our awareness about that. We really appreciate it.
You're welcome.
And thank you all for your act of heroism. Up next this evening is an announcement of Big Brothers and Big Sisters upcoming event by Stacy Hart, not by Katie Williams.
Hi. First, I'd like to thank Commissioner Brock for allowing me to speak tonight, inviting me, and for being a champion for Big Brothers Big Sisters here in Wakulla County, and lastly for taking the lead on our recently formed Wakulla County Advisory Panel. Big Brothers Big Sisters of the Big Bend is a mentoring organization pairing adult mentors who are screened and trained with children facing adversity around the Big Bend. Through United Way funding, fundraising events, individual donors, and other grants, we have been able to hire a local part-time program person, Stacy Harvey, back in 2011. And recently, we're pleased to say that we have been able to now hire a second part-time person as a volunteer mentor recruiter. So we have been very involved over the last couple of years in chamber events, trying to spread the word down here about our program. And now we feel like it's time to double our impact here. Our goal in this upcoming year is to serve 20 children in Wakulla County. And the way that we do that primarily is through our fundraising events, of which the third annual Big Brothers Big Sisters Big Catch Charity Fish Fry is coming up next Tuesday, October 23rd at Posey's Dockside. Tickets are $10 each, and we invite you to bring your family out. We have food catered by Posey's, and a band will be there with some bluegrass music. There are still some sponsorships available as well, so you can visit our website at bbbs.org/bigcatch. You can see me, or you can call me at 386-6002 for tickets and sponsorship information. And any questions?
Is Katie also selling?
Oh, yes, I'm sorry, thank you. And Jennifer Jensen was going to sell, but in her place, Katie has so generously agreed to sell tickets after tonight's meeting. So, thank you so much.
Thank you. I hope everybody can join us. That was a great event last year. I'm looking forward to it again this year. Our next announcement this evening is for Pancreatic Cancer Awareness Month in Wakulla County, and we have Ms. Cardonas going to make a presentation. Is she here? We may come back to her in a second. Announcement of Big Bend Hospice Month in Wakulla County, and Ms. Pam Raker Albritton.
Good evening. Thank you guys for allowing me to speak. November is National Hospice Month, and we are asking that the Wakulla County Board of County Commissioners declare November Big Bend Hospice Month. We have a lot of needs in our county. We are seeing a greater number of our patients who are going through the dying process and trying to take care of their grandchildren. That seems to be more our norm than not. not now, unfortunately. We were established in 1983 by a group of volunteers who wanted to help those in their journey through the dying process. We currently have about 36 patients in Wakulla County that we serve. We serve their families as well as the patient. I'm fortunate enough to be able to provide volunteers in the homes. We do fundraising. Thank you for supporting our fundraising event. We actually have a patient right now who I worked with her for about 15 years at TCC, and her husband is our patient. He's bedbound with dementia, and she got diagnosed with a terminal lung disease and has 6 months and entered our program today. So we have an awful lot of going on in our county right now, but I ask that you consider this proclamation, and thank you so much for all your support of our patients and families.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And it's on our consent agenda, and it should pass with no problem.
Thank you, Alan.
Thank you. Up next this evening is an announcement from Bill Russell regarding the Smoke and Fire Barbecue Cook-Off.
Thank you, Commissioner. This is mainly for the people at home because I know that all the commissioners know about this, but this is a Smoke and Fire Barbecue Cook-Off. It's our third annual one, October 27th, and it'll kick off in the morning with a 5K run at 9 a.m., and we'll start serving dinner at 11, and the judging will start at 11:45 and hopefully finish up around 12:30. And something of interest to you commission candidates, we have a dunking booth, and everybody running for commission volunteered to get in it. I think all of you did it for the right reason, and I'm going to give you a way out of it. Instead of coming over there and getting yourself wet, just hit your friends up to give a little bit of money. Bring $100 contribution, and we won't put anyone in the dunking booth. I hope that I'd rather have the money than have a bunch of wet commissioners. But we're going to have a helicopter. We're going to have a bouncy house. We're going to have fire equipment there, and a lot of good food. We have 16 teams from law enforcement and fire departments and EMS departments in the area, and we're thinking this is going to be a really big, nice event. And it's the first day of early voting, so if you show up with your little I voted sticker on, we'll give you $1 off your price of your ticket.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I like that incentive for getting people to vote, too. It's awesome. Up next this evening is an announcement from Gail Campbell regarding the Wakulla Empty Bowl Project.
Yes, thank you. I'm here in Haiti Jackley's stead and wanted to remind everyone about a fun food raiser that's on November the 3rd at Hudson Park. I think you're all very well aware of it. I, too, will have tickets in the lobby at the end of this evening to sell for that, but I wanted to tell you what this is intended to do. A host of people have been at work on this for about 6 weeks, and we are selling raffle tickets to a mini John Deere tractor at $5 a ticket, and we're only selling 300 of those, so the chances of winning are very good. The other thing we're doing is Haiti is with Ribbits, and she is working to assist artists, whether you are a good artist or a bad artist, in the painting of a bowl that you buy for $10. It's a donation. You don't get to keep the bowl. It's a gift to the project, Empty Bowls. But on November the 3rd, what happens is all of the 300 bowls that have been painted are then selected by 300 people who come to Hudson Park on that day, and they select their bowl. I have to tell you, I looked at the bowls today, and some of them are just brilliant works of art. And I'm going to get there early so I can select the bowl that I selected today. But 300 of each thing. So the raffle tickets, 300 donations of bowls, and then 300 event tickets will result in a little over $6,000 in the coffers to buy food for the 7 churches who distribute food in this county, and assist efforts with Operation Santa, because you'll recall last year we were blindsided a bit by the food needs in the county. We're probably about halfway there. Everybody in the county who's anybody is involved in this already. I won't read names, but we do expect that November the 3rd, just a couple of days before the election, will be it'll be a busy, happy day. So far, I do want to tell you who is making soup for the day, because this is an impressive list. Posies, Friends of Wakulla State Park, Wakulla County Extension Office, Habitat for Humanity, Keep Wakulla County Beautiful, the Rotary, Oakland Bay United Methodist Church, the Green Guides, Ralph Thomas is making chicken and dumplings, Ribbit's Black Beans, Palaver Tree Theaters making honey potato, Trudy Thompson and Madeline Carr. Now, every other person who's running for office in the county has done all kind of other things. So I mentioned a candidate. I don't mean to do that, but it's important that you know that it's not a political event. It's about food, but we look forward to seeing all of you there. I'll have tickets in the lobby.
Thanks, that's awesome. I went by and painted a bowler today. It was a lot of fun. We have an announcement from Bruce Ashley regarding Operation Santa.
Thank you, Commissioners, and thank you for your service. Just a quick update. We are already underway for the 2012 Operation Santa through the Coalition for Youth. You heard Gail Campbell mention one of the activities that the Coalition has its umbrella over, and that's the Empty Bowl Project. We are already getting referrals. We are already getting donations. We have set up a couple of storage locations thanks to John Schuff, who offered a space to the Coalition. We're storing furniture and clothing in a location that he's provided. We're still hopeful that very soon we might get word that we can use the sanctuary again at the community center if there is going to be that opportunity, and we hope that it is, because it's such a large area that we need for this operation. Last year we helped over 140 families and over 300 children. We expect the outcry for help again this year. We are going to focus on basic needs of families in the community, and that is going to be clothing, household goods, food, some toy items for children that otherwise might not receive a toy for Christmas. So the referral process again is underway. If anybody knows of a family in need, they can email my address at bashley@wcso.org or call the Coalition's phone number at 926-3526. And we'll be back again as soon as we get, we'll be keeping you updated, and we appreciate all the support again. Many people in this room helped last year, and we expect the need to be as great this year.
And where do you want donations other than furniture to be taken?
Right now, they just need to contact me, and I will arrange to have it picked up and delivered. We've got some families offering garage fulls of things, and we're arranging to get it picked up. But right now, the North Point Shopping Center has a store front that we're using, and we have the TCC old campus building that Miss Bonnie Hollop has offered us to use as well for storage right now. So those two locations are active, and we have access to those to put items in. And again, if the sanctuary did not become available, we would probably be primarily out of the TCC old center. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We have an award presentation by Sheriff Johnny Crum.
Thank you, Commissioners. Tonight, we're here for a little different. We always recognize people from time to time that save a life, and tonight we're here to do the same thing, just a little different. And so I'll read from this, okay? Nigel Safe, this is a safe family. Nigel Safe and his wife, Paige, were canoeing on the Wakulla River, and they spotted a canoe that had capsized. The humans were fine, but the two dogs were not there. They were in the boat. So Nigel got in the water and went out and saved the two dogs. And so we're here to recognize Nigel for saving two animals, two dogs tonight. And so I think that's a great thing. Thank you so much.
And then Commissioner Arts, you had a couple announcements?
Yes. On Thursday, October 25th, is the candlelight vigil that we have been holding in Hudson Park. I think this is the fourth or fifth fourth year maybe, and this is a celebration, or it's to celebrate the memory of those who have been lost to drug and alcohol-related incidents and those suffering from addiction. And it's a moving event for families who have lost family members to these problems. And so anyone is welcome to attend. The reception starts at 6 p.m. The vigil starts at 6:30 p.m. on Thursday, October 25th at Hudson Park. Also, I wanted to remind everybody that if you want to serve on the Restore Act Advisory Committee, the applications are due by October 26th, and that we're looking for a resident who will represent the communities of Shell Point, Oyster Bay, and Spring Creek. We're looking for someone to represent the fishing industry. We're looking for someone with natural resources expertise, and also a citizen at large with financial accounting or budgeting experience. So you can get applications online or from Jessica's, the administration office. And lastly, starting Sunday, is the beginning of National Wildlife Refuge Week. And on Saturday, October 27th, is the 24th Annual Monarch Butterfly Festival, starting at 10 a.m. So please visit the St. Mark's National Wildlife Refuge and see all the beautiful monarchs that are migrating through.
Awesome, thank you. And the NOPE event was taking place at 6 p.m., is that what you said?
Yes, the reception food is at 6, and the vigil itself with the candles and so forth is at 6:30.
At Hudson Park.
Hudson Park.
All right, thank you for those announcements. Were there any other announcements? That covers everything. All right, excellent. Up next on our agenda, you'll notice that it says citizens to be heard. We put that as a placeholder on our agenda. We'll come back to that around 6:30. If you'd like to speak, we could provide 3 minutes to discuss items that are related to the County Commission and County Commission business that could come before the board. You just need to make sure you fill out a card and turn it into Katie, and we will acknowledge you at Citizens to be Heard. Up next on the agenda is the consent agenda. We had item 9 pulled, item 11 pulled, item 19 pulled, and item 12 tabled. I'll entertain a motion to pass the consent agenda.
So moved. Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Well, now we're going to come up to item number 9. I think Heather pulled it and Commissioner Arts pulled it.
Heather pulled it first.
Heather pulled it first. So yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to pull it because on the table in front of you is the final version of the contract that we're seeking authority to enter into with each of the selected consultants.
Out there or something?
Well.
Oh. It was on the floor out there or something. I was just missing it.
The version that went out with the RFQ was amended slightly, so I wanted to make sure that you had the final version. That was why I pulled it.
Okay. Commissioner Arts?
Okay, and I pulled it because I'm delighted that we have all of these expert consultants available to help our county, but I saw something that I couldn't help noticing because it's a common misperception, and I just wanted to say a few things and share my perspective given my experience on this. And so if you look on the agenda item, it talks about that we were looking for the following kinds of professional consulting services: engineering design services, surveying and mapping services, architectural services, and landscape architectural services. But when I looked at the first attachment, attachment 2, it listed architecture, and then in another column it listed landscaping. And I think there tends to be a misconception about what landscape architects do. And the equivalent would be if instead of having architecture, we had something like building construction. Because the architects design the buildings, and then people go and design and then build them. subsequently. And landscape architects also, they work with the land, but they design for a site. They're the people that you should call in at the beginning, rather than, and people often think, well, you bring them in at the end so they can tell you where to plant these trees or these shrubs. And most landscape architects hate doing that. That's not what they're trained to do. And they're too often brought in at the end. And I've tried really hard with a former commissioner, former administrator, and former grants person to kind of educate them about that. And so I'm kind of taking this opportunity with our county administrator and our new grants people that really, when you're going to develop a property, the landscape architect is the first person you bring in, or you bring in conjunction with your architect. This county has a history of, I think, not using landscape architects at all, and using other people to try to do their jobs. And just a couple examples. I know with the equestrian center, for example, we had an engineer do a site plan, and a lot of people think you call an engineer to do a site plan. And the building was lined up in parallel with the road. And I happened to have a landscape architect I was meeting with on something else just take a look at that, and in 2 seconds he immediately suggested that it would be a better use of the site if the building was angled. And it did. Once he suggested it, and you saw that was a better placement. So again, I'm glad we're going to have this expertise on site, and I'm just encouraging you, let's bring the landscape architects in at the beginning and not at the end, because they really don't do landscaping. Okay, so I move that we, whoops, I'm going to go back there.
Can I make the motion, Ms. Lawrence?
Please.
Motion to approve the evaluation team's ranking of proposals for professional consulting services. RFQ, approve the 6 firms selected, and authorize the chairman to execute an agreement for services with those firms.
Second. Thank you.
You're welcome.
We had one citizen file a card. I think he waives the opportunity to speak. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Passes unanimously. Thank you. Next on the evening's agenda is item 11. I believe pulled by Commissioner Arts.
This was me. And we're just scheduling a public hearing, and I just wanted to make sure that when the agenda item comes to the board, that it will include not just the proposed Texas amendment, but that it will include the other options and some background information. We have, when this comes, this public hearing is scheduled, we'll have a new board. We may have as many as 3 new commissioners. So I just would like to direct staff to advertise and to schedule and advertise public hearings to present the options available to the board, and to consider transmittal of the text amendment to the future land use element of the comprehensive plan to incorporate the board-directed amendments.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion from the board? We have one citizen who's filed a card, Mr. Chuck, who declines to speak. All in favor?
Aye.
Passes unanimously.
Okay, and then 19.
Item 19, which you also pulled this evening.
Right, and Heather or David, do you want to talk about that a little bit?
I wasn't planning on it. Do you have specific questions that you wanted us to address? I mean, as the agenda item says, this is previously the board had given instruction to look at developing a CRA for this area, and when we went back and looked at that, we thought the same things could be accomplished and give you greater flexibility by using a tax increment district instead, and this ordinance would set that up. And basically the procedures, you would determine as frequently as annually, if you wanted to, the percentage that you would dedicate to that tax increment district, and that resolution would come back to you at a later date.
Okay, and I would like to thank our county attorney and Louis Cerna for working on this. I know a lot of people have wanted to see progress on the Crawfordville Town Plan and have talked about forming a CRA. This is it's essentially the same as a CRA, but it gives us some more flexibility than a CRA. So I move to schedule and advertise a public hearing to review the full advantages associated with a tax increment zone, and to consider adopting the proposed ordinance establishing the Greater Crawfordville tax increment area.
Second.
Motion is second. Any further discussion?
I just want to be sure we reiterate that this would benefit Crawfordville, and the people that got the benefits in Crawfordville would be paying for it. Not people in Smith Creek or Shop Shop be paying to improve Crawfordville.
Right, and that people often raise that concern, but
Yeah, this would help, yeah.
Is there any particular difference between this and a CRA other than the setup costs?
The setup costs, basically, and also maintenance in the future will be, it's considerably cheaper to initially set up, as you don't have to have your studies for blighted areas, etc. The main thing it allows us is flexibility. That's the biggest thing, year-over-year flexibility. And it's as I said, it's an increment area, meaning that we'll set it this year, and then any increase in property value will go towards the TIFs.
And it's a little different in the annual reporting requirements also, but it does the same. It has the same effect of taking the increased property values and reinvesting it in that area.
Go over that real quick. My understanding is, in theory, when you do these improvements, property values go up. But I think in reality, we're in the bottom of a housing market, I hope, and they're probably going to go up if you do no improvements anyway. So I think that the timing is probably pretty good. If we'd have done this during the boom, we'd be with zero. We'd be lint in our pockets. But now, it's not like we're buying at the bottom of the stock market, but we're catching when those prices are low. Hopefully they'll go up, and the revenue this generates off of increased property values will be used only in that area, and nobody else pays for it. To me, that's the most important thing.
And I want to make this clear, this is not a separate tax or a new tax. Nobody is going to pay more because of this. Rather, what this does is set up a mechanism for the county to measure a contribution that you're going to make into the trust fund to provide needed infrastructure in Crawfordville, so that they can provide greater economic opportunities and job growth in that area.
They will get sidewalks in Crawfordville. People that benefit those sidewalks will be paying for those sidewalks.
That's exactly right.
well, their taxes will be directed toward that. And I think, I know I had a lot of questions, and I've gotten some additional email information and so forth. I think I would just encourage, when this item comes back, that there be a lot of additional detail included. What are the exact differences between a CRA and this? So,
okay.
Anyway, I made the motion.
Perfect. We have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
It passed unanimously. Thank you. We don't have any planning and zoning items this evening, so we're going to move on to general business. Our first general business item of the evening is a request for board approval to update the existing contract with Wakulla County with ESG. Mr. Cleve Fleming, if you would please come to the podium. Mitchell.
If we accept this contract, do we have to keep Cleve?
I think he comes with it.
Like a bad habit. The contract.
Like a bad habit.
Cleve, I can walk through quickly the contract changes.
I've left my agenda item. I've got the contract, but not the agenda item.
I thought I'd let you get up there and squirm a little bit. Just for fun. This is the second amendment. Back in 2006, end of 2006, Wakulla County entered into a contract with ESG. That was a 10-year contract. So this contract was not up for renewal. This is sort of an interim tweak. It will expire, if approved, in 2017. What we've done here is accomplished a few things. You can see in the analysis section of your agenda item a real brief reiteration of them. We've included a mechanism to compensate GSG for any overtime that they may accrue above a certain percentage in any pay period. We've amended the solid waste scope of services to account for the changes in the way that operation is run due to the county's franchising of that to Waste Pro. We've attempted to align the contract with the county's fiscal year rather than the calendar year, which will help with budgeting. We've included a requirement for ESG to provide annual CIP and R&R lists to the county, so that also will help in budgeting and long-term planning. We've amended the indemnification provisions primarily to include language that I recommended, that dealing with the county's sovereign immunity and the fact that you're not waiving that, and that any indemnification is limited by Florida statutes. We have determined that the best way to proceed with use of county vehicles is to lease the vehicles to ESG. The lease is also attached. It's basically a very low-cost dollar per vehicle lease, but what that does is allows ESG to maintain proper insurance for liability, and we will just maintain property insurance on those vehicles.
Question on that.
Yes.
Please, are you guys going to repair and maintain those vehicles since you're leased? And right now, it's on the R&R account, right?
The contract says we would maintain.
So it's passed through?
Yeah, yes.
Right now, they're being maintained as a pass-through?
It'll be, we're going to maintain the
If Don Kemp's truck needs a tire, who's paying for it?
we are.
Okay.
But if obviously if the engine goes out, we're going to probably recommend it be replaced. But you know,
It's kind of a hybrid.
the routine oil changes, the normal maintenance we'll take care of. And this, the big thing is it puts the insurance liability all on us. We actually, at another project, had a situation where it was a very serious accident, and both our insurance carrier and the client's insurance carrier got at odds with each other trying to sort out who's responsible. This way, if we have an accident, the county never gets involved in it.
What about something like the boom mower, for example? Is that also leased deal?
No. Just basically tag vehicles.
Just tag vehicles?
Tag vehicles, yes.
This, in the original contract, we were receiving 36 full-time employees. This has been reduced to 30 full-time employees. Primarily, we're cutting back on some things in the solid waste.
Well, actually, we were up to 39 employees. The contract was never amended, but back when Ben Pingree was here, we went through and added 3 more employees. But as we reduced, obviously we reduced our contract over $500,000 over the last couple of years. So, but that was never in an amended contract. But we have it was board approval. We added 3 extra people. We were at a high of 39 employees.
My question to Heather about that was there a corresponding drop in cost for a corresponding drop in people? But apparently that's being covered before, the drop in cost. It's just not been codified in the contract.
Yeah. It's part of the major budget reduction we did a couple of years ago.
I just want to make sure everybody understands, well, they're getting the same amount of money and they're cutting back 6 employees. They're not getting the same amount of money that they were when they had those 36 employees.
Yeah.
Right, 39. Yeah.
And it's worth mentioning, I mean, when we did the major budget reductions, you've seen a reduction in services from Public Works, but that's because we're collecting less in taxes. So, good point.
This amendment updates the equipment list just to reflect your current inventory, provides for the base fee that you'll see. It's $1,678,662, payable monthly. It modifies and clarifies the uncontrollable circumstances section of the contract, and then just provides some other minor cleanup items.
I have one question, similar. Okay, you crashed the truck. Who pays for the crash?
Going forward, it's going to be 100% our liability.
It'll be your liability.
Yeah.
Okay.
But we have the property insurance.
That was,
Just like they're all company vehicles.
It's
now,
going
it
to
used to be.
It's going to be a decrease. We'll be paying the property insurance. They'll be paying the liability insurance, and it's going to be good for all of us.
In the past, both. I mean, we both insurance companies are getting involved. This way, if we're at fault, it's 100% our insurance, and the county never gets involved.
Are they still going to have yellow tags on them? They'd be
Yes.
county vehicles.
We will not. They will have yellow tags on them. They will not be used anywhere but for Wakulla County. The only time those vehicles will leave the county is obviously we haul sludge.
Right.
They go to the mines over in
My
Franklin
question
County.
was on fuel. The fuel's paid through as a pass-through right now. It'll remain
Yeah.
that way. Of course, your truck is not a pass-through because that's a personal vehicle, but These would stay county vehicles, same stipulation, people won't drive them home and drive them off the vacation.
Yeah, same rule, basically same policies the county does for take-home vehicles, only call out people, have vehicles go home.
According to our insurance carrier as well, this will be a savings to the county because we'll actually take those vehicles off of our liability. We don't know that exact number right now, what it'll be over what we're adding then. So it will be a savings as well as it removes a lot of liability. And so it's a great deal for the county as
now,
well.
Are we being redundant in the property insurance? In other words, if Don Kemp totals a truck, collision insurance is going to pay to replace it, or ESG's is. Do we still keep a policy that we're paying for also to replace that truck, Heather?
I think the only time, if the truck was stolen,
I think if it catches, was it catches on fire for some act of God or something? I know there was an overlap there somewhere where his insurance would cover it, but the county's...
I know Debbie ran it through your risk management consultant, and it was recommended to do it that way.
Yes.
That we would still maintain property.
You know what I mean? I just want to pay for something we don't need if his insurance will cover it anyway.
That's what we're doing. We're making sure that we're not paying for stuff.
Okay.
But also making sure that we're covered just in case. We don't want to pull back on something and then all of a sudden find out.
It should definitely be a lot lower premium since his insurance is primary.
And you mentioned the heavy equipment. We have a general liability policy that heavy equipment is covered on there, so you've never really covered the heavy equipment.
I guess that's what I was thinking of, is a liability issue for heavy equipment, that if somebody got in a wreck and hurt a house, your insurance would cover it, but if it burned to the ground through nobody's fault of their own, it wouldn't cover it.
Yeah.
That's the property.
That's the
risk.
property.
I entertain a motion.
So moved.
Do we have a second? Motion is second. Is there further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Pass unanimously. Thank you.
And I guess Commissioner Arts was going to make me squirm some more because she gave me the wrong item.
Oh, sorry.
About the wildflowers.
Up next on our agenda this evening is requesting board approval of the final Wakulla County Infrastructure Plan. Ms. Sheree Keeler. To the podium.
The last board meeting, you were presented with a draft of the proposed adopted infrastructure plan. That meeting, you voted to accept the draft and review and come back with recommendations and changes to the adopted plan for tonight's meeting. And what we want to do is get any changes that or additions or deletions or whatever you feel like we need to have. Then we'll finalize the plan and bring it back before the November 5th meeting, and then that you will vote on that, and that'll be our plan that we'll use moving forward for the Restore Act.
Katie?
Let's
There we go. Katie, thank you.
Do you want to do we take a recess for Comcast? Yeah, let's take a 5-minute break. How long? 5-minute breaks while we get all the computers back online. Is that okay? 5-minute recess. We'll come back to this item. Y'all can buy your tickets now. I know Gail and Katie are selling tickets to the large crowd in the room. Ready? We apologize, everybody, as you're aware at home watching this. Hopefully you've caught back up with us. There's a weather pattern moving through tonight. A cold front is moving through Wakulla County, and the storm has just got to our meeting location. It's a bit of a torrential rain downpour outside right now, and we lost power in the building. We took a break to get everybody caught back up and get Comcast and our video cameras back on, and we're starting back up. County Administrator was leading us through an item, and we're going to pass it back over to him.
This item is the adopted infrastructure plan. At the last meeting, we presented to the board, to the commissioners, draft of the proposed infrastructure plan. This time, at this point, we need to have the changes, deletions, additions. We needed those by tonight's meeting. We've had several projects that we've added to the that were recommended that we've added to the agenda item for your approval and input on those projects. We've gotten projects from Shell Point, Panacea, St. Mark's, City of St. Mark's, and City of South Chopper will be forwarding projects into the future. They're just not sure what those are at this point in time. So, anyway, should you approve this tonight, staff will work with Kimley Horn to create a final adopted infrastructure plan that will incorporate all the changes, and we'll bring it back before you on the November 5th meeting to make a final recommendation. These projects are going to be used for both the main purposes of the Restore Act as part of what we'll be recommending to the committee to be looking at and evaluating these. Some of these projects will be put into our pot of money that will be coming directly down from the county, and that'll be priorities that working with the Restore Act board that we'll make as priorities of the county. Primarily those will be infrastructure. That's what I've been hearing is infrastructure such as sewer plant, sewer collection system, stormwater, etc. And then some of the other projects can flow over into pots 2 and 3, which is the competitive pots that'll be rated via whether they have regional influence or just a good project for that community. So at this point in time, I'd like to hear if y'all any advice or if you're okay with it, or yes, sir.
I'd like to restrict these to projects that are only on county property. If this is going to be the first pot of money, only the infrastructure projects that are on county property, which is the only one here I can see that's not on county property is the Octopus Garden Memorial Park. I think this is a great idea, but I think there's other pots of money to fund it, and I don't think we should be spending money not county tax on it, but Restore Act money that we could use on county facilities on private property. That's the only issue I have with it, is that it's on private property. If it was Woolly Park, fine, whatever.
I agree.
Not on private property.
I don't disagree with you. I agree with you. And I would think that if they wanted to move forward with seeking this money, that they would look to figure out some way of making that a county park if they wanted to have it funded with county dollars.
Okay.
Mr. Stewart?
I want to make sure that I'm understanding this, David, going forward. What we approve tonight, whatever changes we make and approve that plan that you presented us last meeting, this is what we're going to have on the shelf, if you will, when this money starts coming down for that pot one money. There's 4 pots. Pot 1 money is going to be, now, this is a bunch of projects that could be approved that we may or may not do, because the committees that we're going to form together is going to rank these projects for us. That's right. Bring to us, say, hey, this is what we suggest y'all approve. This being number 1, number 2, number 3, whatever. Am I understanding it right? That's right, and we'll give them instructions on ranking the projects and putting forward the merit on each project, and they'll recommend to you guys about ranking those projects, and also about putting those projects and whether they should be in those other pots, because you can also have a project that we could fund out of this pot, but we could also see if we can seek funding out of pots 2 and 3. So they'll determine that is what other pots they might.
This isn't an exclusive list either. If we come up with a bridge that nobody's thought about and wherever that needs to be replaced because nobody's thought about it.
Yeah, I think that's important.
Too many times in the past, people said, well, it's not on the list, we're not going to even look at it.
Understand, this is going to be, if the money's come down, the money's at the levels they're thinking that may or may not come. I mean, you're talking about 3, 5, 7 years worth of projects here. So there's a lot of work going underneath the bridge, pardon the pun, between now and then. So there'll be more projects added on to this.
And one of the things to keep in mind with this is, especially as we talk about the Restore Act, with those different pots of money, we'll have our money, but if that'll come to Wakulla County. But the other pots of money, I would encourage us to make sure that if we have a project, let's say we're fixing our storm wastewater system, I would apply for the state funding first to see if the state can fund it before we spend our money.
I agree.
Because there's a lot more flexibility with our money than there is with the competitive pots. But I think we should try for the competitive pots for each of our projects before we start allocating ours.
Most definitely.
Especially for beach restoration and stuff like that. It's really coastal intensive.
Also, we can rearrange those projects. The board can...
Y'all have the final say, yes.
Yeah, we can do a rearrangement.
He's just going to recommend.
Yes.
That's right.
Commissioner Arts?
Yes, First, a couple things. I would like some clarification as to the timeline for this, because it seems like it's been on a pretty fast track, and that question was asked of me. So
Part of this is there were certain things we had to have done within 120 days of July, the end of July. One of these was to become to set the consortium up. That's become a core partner in the consortium, and so that we set the structure of funding up for pots 2 and 3. Okay, we've done that. You did that last week. Second part of that is to set a committee. How are we going to manage it within the county? How is our structure? You did that last week. Thirdly was to set a project list, initial project list, and that's what we're walking through now. Realize we're operating on a very short window as well. We were given this and said, here, now go, and this completes our what we'll have to do, and then we're set and ready. Unless something changes, we're set and ready to whenever that clock ticks out, then we're ready for the next phase.
Okay, that question was asked by the park board, which had their second meeting, and in looking through, a lot of these are park projects. And they would have liked to have input. So I've been trying to get them an electronic copy, which I managed to get for them today, but, you know, it's like today's the cutoff time.
But that's why I brought that up earlier. We can always add more to it.
Right, and I've tried, they have given me a few suggestions, which I incorporated in with some of my own ideas. And it was my understanding we were each supposed to bring our suggested revisions tonight. So what I've done is the dark just corresponds to the projects that are on the list, the same organization in the book. The red, and I'm sorry if that's not a good color choice, was just so you could quickly see what I was suggesting, either adding or condensing or moving or whatever. I've tried to not just bring my ideas, but again, I brought some from the park board and from some other people. And you might not like them all, but don't get turned off too much just when you see the first one.
Does it have wildflowers?
In other words, you don't want us to be turned off too fast.
Right.
Understand that these projects, before we get started, these projects, each project here is kind of a placeholder, and part of this, what the board is going to have to do, the Restore Act Committee board here within the county, is work with organizations such as the Parks Board, other committees, because they're going to actually have to be working along with us as staff to develop and finalize all of these plans and cost them out. So there's going to be a lot of community and input that's going to be required for these.
Okay, and this was just my trying to go through it and offer my suggestions.
So far, so good.
We may get $20 million, and this is $40 million worth of work.
I know. But the way it's set up, and I did put, the way it's set up in the book is that we kind of have a front section, and then there's a list of everything else. And so I've identified some that I think could go down in the everything else, the other category.
What was the grief or heartburn with the seasonal RV park at Woolly Park?
Well, based on my experience with that group, I know that they like having an events park, and they also want to preserve the views. And so the seasonal RV park seemed inconsistent with that. And I checked to see if this idea was coming forward from Panacea Waterfronts, and it did not. And in fact, I've just learned today, Panacea Waterfronts also does not want the seasonal RV park.
And in fact, that would kind of compete with Miss McMillan up there also, too.
Right.
Fantasy's base. So I don't have a problem pulling that one.
And it's not really set up. We'd have to do a lot of work to set it up for an RV park. So
I think most of these are already accommodated for in other requests by what do we do when we've got this is I was not putting my list in simply because I was waiting for the affected areas to put their list in and work off of their list.
Yeah, I think it's good. We, the Woolly Park and, speaking of Woolly Park and BBMC, the Big Bend St. Highway, we're actually gonna, tie in Walker Street as well. The canoe kayak line, and tie all that together as one part to add Walker Street to that.
I think these are pretty good, Mr.
Yeah.
Looking through this whole list, I see it. I spoke with Cherie a while back about putting instead of focusing on just Crab Apple Park, trying to turn all of the Hudson parks into a chain of parks and just connecting them all. So I might label it that way versus Crab Apple Park.
Well, and the Crab Apple Park does basically take traffic from Senior Center down to headed toward Azaleas.
Yeah.
Sinkhole on it, right?
Mm-hmm. So I don't know if you want to make that notation or change just to connect the Hudson parks as a chain of parks.
And that would be fine.
Okay. And other than that, I don't see any that make me any of your suggested changes.
What about now, David, the only one I maybe have a little bit of grief with is the Upper Bridge, where you can't no longer be able to launch motorized boats there. If this goes through, I mean, we got very limited places where people can put a boat in the water already.
Limit the horsepower maybe to 5 horsepower or lower, or
Hand launch only, and, you know.
Well, something like that would be fine. I think what I'm hearing from the people who are talking to me about boat ramps and wanting to take pressure off the ramp at St. Mark's National Wildlife Refuge is that, you know, even those are so far up that people don't really want to use those so much that we need more right on the coast.
but a lot of people do use that.
Yes.
Yeah.
With motors. Now, I agree that you shouldn't launch a boat, and I've seen them do it with, 90 and 150 horsepower motors.
225s come out of it. Seriously, scare them.
Well, if we limit it,
10 horse or less or something, whatever.
Okay.
Well, and trying to keep the wake down to no wake on the upper part of the water.
Actually, it's my understanding of this that not any of this is cut in stone. We can make changes to it all the way around.
Oh, yeah, and realize, like I said, the committee will be charged with helping to formulate community input
Yeah.
and further advancing the details and really getting down into the weeds of all these projects.
There's one that I was going to mention, the Skipper Bay. I mentioned to you maybe Skipper Bay kayak launch. I don't.
Got to add that. We'll add that to it.
Yeah.
Just thinking out loud, what if we, and I know it's not supposed to be a long, extracted conversation, but if we were to buy Olin's old recreation area they have on the river, right? It's a really nice place.
Well, and I was going to bring up something similar to the county administrator during this conversation. I think we should be looking for public park access on the Wakulla River to that side of the county.
That would work with
That would work perfect. I know it's a subject that I've heard broached before. I think St. Mark's Powder's been hesitant to sell because of security. It's so close to their property. But if they were ever willing to sell,
just a thought, I mean,
I think it's a great facility.
We can add things like that ongoing, I guess, as we go. I mean, I just thought of that now.
And you're right. That's one of the things that I've heard a lot since I've been here is not enough parks, especially on the river, no swimming areas that are county swimming areas.
Yeah.
That's the service that we need to provide.
The only access to the rivers right now, park-wise, are City of St. Mark's and City of Stop Chopping.
Right.
So, it'd be something. I just want to see if we can include something along those lines. I think that would be another good addition.
Property acquisition.
Property acquisition along the Wakulla River for public access.
Okay.
And St. Mark's Powder's.
Also, the property where 61. I've talked about this for years. Where 61 meets Shaeville Highway, that triangle sheep piece of property. Where the lanes.
Mm-hmm.
That's like 5 or 6 acres there, and I think it's county right of way, isn't it? Or, I'm not sure.
I don't know if the whole thing is or not.
Anyway, that's
okay.
So what do you do with it?
Park out 5 or 6 acres.
All right, we'll make those additions. Anything else?
No, right there.
What do we need? We already got a motion in a second.
We need a motion to approve as amended. We don't have one.
So
Move to,
We have a motion. We have a second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
This will be coming,
Any opposed?
Jessica, we'll be getting this back
Passes unanimously.
in the final draft form or final
Thanks.
form at the
Thanks, Commissioner
next
Artis.
month.
And so we need to be putting our hats on like Ms. Arts did and see if we can come up with anything.
I think this is the end of, I think now they're bringing back a final draft for us to approve. So if you had anything else you want to add, you need to do it now.
Too late now. That's right.
It's tonight. Yeah, I was saying you need to do it. You have about an hour. We can bring it up during discussion
That's
items. If there's some other project that you have.
Can't think that fast.
I'm going to talk about restoring our mind at the end. Yeah,
Okay, we'll come
that
back.
doesn't have anything to do with it.
there'll be potential
Jessica
for the future.
correcting me. It won't be coming back to the board. We'll just get the final, and it'll be final. Okay? All right? Very good. Thank you.
Item 15, request board ratification of payment for tree removal and surgery services at the Wakulla County Airport. Apologies.
Make a motion to approve payment for tree removal and survey services.
Do you have a
at the
motion?
County Airport.
Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a citizen. Do we have a Chuck? Do you want a discussion or hear about it? I know Chuck Hess?
I'm just curious who's paying for this. I keep hearing, I've been a fan of the airport forever, and I've always been told you were doing everything with grant money, and now this looks like our money. And so who's paying for this? And that's my question.
These funds, excuse me, I'm sorry.
County Administrator?
Okay, these funds, it will be paid for through the 1 cent sales tax. What happened was, as I've explained in the past, is we had talked with DOT, and they had assured us that once we started this process, realized they gave us a period of time to get the obstructions cleaned out for safety purposes. We had talked to DOT about funding for this project, and at the time we were going to amend our existing JPA of $78,000, I believe is what it was, and in that JPA was going to be tree clearing, surveying, right-of-way acquisition, property acquisition, etc., for the future expansion of the airport as well as for maintaining what we've got. DOT central office changed up as I had represented that in the past that DOT had said there's no need in redoing our airport master plan. I was assured of that. Central office changed their mind. They wrote a letter out and said, yes, you are going to have to do that, and any funds, this JPA, all that had to go towards master plan update. I asked the question. I said, well, wait just a minute. We were halfway through the process. They said, let's.
You're not going to be able to come back up.
I just want to say I'm opposed to it at this point.
So basically they backed out of the agreement with us that they would pay for that based upon all central office stated that they wanted all the money to go towards the creation of the master plan, updating the master plan and updating the ALP. Therefore, we were caught halfway through the process. We had to finish up, and therefore we're pulling the money from the 1 cent sales tax, and that's exactly what happened. So if anybody's fault, it would be my fault. We should have got that in writing with DOT, but we were operating under good faith, and we know better next time.
Okay. Any further discussion from the board? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Last on our general business, well, we have two more things on general business because the county administrator wants to do a FEMA update. But up next is request board approval of the preliminary fiscal year 2012-2011 year-end estimates. Mr. Greg James.
Come on up, Greg. I'm not going to let you get out that easy. That's general. What we wanted to do was, now that we've closed out September, what we wanted to do is as we've done in other months, is especially towards now that it's the end of the year, bring you some kind of an update of it's basically the same sheet that we presented all year. This is unaudited. There's further audits that has to go through, and we got to take out depreciation and a couple of other things. But what we want to do is give you an idea and give the citizens mainly a recap of last year and how we've done financially last year. And Greg, do you want to pick it up here, or you want me to go ahead and give you all the highlights?
It doesn't matter.
Okay.
There's a couple clarifications. We haven't actually closed out the fiscal year. This is a preliminary closeout.
Right, this is a preliminary closeout. So, and this is the same thing we've done each and every month. Basically the bottom line, just to let everyone know, this past year, we were to have put back, we had budgeted $475,000 was to have come and went to our reserve fund. We actually are going to put back $631,000 to our reserve fund and our general fund. This come through $370,000 worth of reductions in expenditures, as well as we had a tax, an increase in our revenues of $260,000, so that resulted in a $631,000 increase to our reserve funds. Our road department fund, we increased by $250,000. We're actually going to have a $250,000 profit there, so we'll, and then the sewer fund is going to about break even at $61,000, and our solid waste fund is healing itself at $112,000, but it has a ways to go, as we were severely in the hole with our solid waste fund, and it's paying back the general fund monies now, and that will take, at this rate, that will take quite a few years, because it was in really bad shape. And the sewer fund has realized also the sewer fund will be in bad shape based on our 5-year plan, and we're taking actions on that now, and that's a good part of the 5-year plan, is we were especially able to identify that, and we've got a plan working forward for it to help that. But all in all, you can ask Greg some specifics, but all in all, we've done very well this year. We've kept our expenses down. We've come in under budget, and we feel like we've accomplished quite a bit. We've got some challenges moving forward. As I spoke, our wastewater treatment plant, that is a problem that's going to affect the general fund and everything that we're doing. But we've got a plan to get out of it, to help out, and we're looking at a lot of different areas. Currently, we're exploring all different types of mechanisms, funding mechanisms, grants, low interest loans, etc., to do that. Also, FEMA, just to let the public know, we're having an incredibly hard time getting any money back from FEMA from our recent storm. It is very obvious, and very, very obvious, and we cannot bury our heads here, because smoke and mirrors is not going to do it. The bottom line is you cannot rely on FEMA for any funding in the future for storm events. They're not going to fund us. It's obvious. We're going to a meeting on Wednesday. They do not want to fund. So we've got to make sure that we have got the ability to cash flow an event. If we don't, we're going to be stuck, and we're going to be right back where we were at. We have got to build our reserves up to be able to do that, because if we don't, we will get caught with our pants down, and we cannot rely on FEMA at all. And if you think we can, you're wrong. So there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it, because they haven't funded anything yet, and they're not planning on funding a thing. We're going to end up about $500,000 they're not going to fund. So
is that in our budget, or is that going to hit our budget, that $500,000?
Portions of that, yes, will.
Did they fund any of the large projects like the Bostic Felt Road?
Nothing. I understand. We did everything right. Our documentation was correct. It is very obvious, and other counties are seeing the same thing. But we're not the only one. We're going to talk about that more in the next item. We're going to talk about that more in the next item. But I just want to bring that up. It's about the budget. That's right. This is about the budget. Then we also, moving forward, we still have maintenance issues that we've identified. Much of those, we put together a plan as part of our 5-year plan. We have actually increased some spending in some areas, strategically increased spending in areas to be able to take care of that both now and into the future, as well as we've got to help our employees out, and we've got that next year coming up, not this coming up year, but the following year, as far as helping them with, because we need to help them out with some cost of living raises, etc. So those are our challenges moving forward. Like I said, we've created the 5-year plan of getting ready to extend it to a 10-year plan, and we have a plan that we're working. We can work out through all these issues. We'll be bringing the 10-year plan, or the 5-year plan, excuse me, back to you probably November, December timeline and kind of showing everyone kind of where we're at and our plans for the future, even further in further detail. So, but all in all, I think we're doing well as a county. We currently have, we've got about, we had 2 years ago, we were at a negative in a cash position. We were at a negative $2 million. As of right now, we have a positive cash position of $1 million. That's one heck of a turnaround, and I applaud you guys. Y'all made the tough decisions to get us back. We were at the brink of disaster, and you guys brought us back, and I appreciate it. And so anyway, that's where we're at. And Greg, you got anything to add to that?
Thanks, Jerry.
Any questions?
Jerry did everything.
No, but I have a question if you don't mind.
I don't mind at all. I'm still just.
What was the cash, or not the cash balance in the 9-10 year?
The general fund is mainly what we're tracking here. The general fund cash in 09-10, we closed the year with a negative $2,025,000.
And what are we now?
We're a positive $997.
$1 million. So a $3 million swing.
$3 million swing.
I'd say that's pretty good on the budget. I mean, we did it as a board and this staff. We dug ourselves out of a deep hole in a financial crisis, and I am absolutely pleased with the where we are now. It's amazing, and the idea that David has built this 5-year budget, but especially the year of 10, 11, and then this year. Remember, we're always looking at a year in arrears, and so we're still coming out of this deep hole, but we've come a long way, and I hand it to the board and to the staff and what we got done. It was painful, and we had to do some hard things that wasn't always pleasing to the public, but in the end, we're setting ourselves up, like David's suggestion about the storm, that we have some reserves to work with where we had nothing before to work with. So I feel good about that.
I'd like to see us, I talked to David about this, and this is certainly not any time in the near future, but as soon as we do get our reserves back to where they need to be, look at taking what we were putting in reserve, make sure everybody else's reserve is, once the county's financially back on its feet, take what we were putting in savings and lower the millage rate.
I agree.
I want to stick to our plan. I don't want to just come back and arbitrarily lower it just to make us feel better. But as soon as we're back where we need to be with our savings account, stop putting that money back towards savings and take it off.
In fact, that's
one of
the things that we've been working on in the 10-year plan is actually the timing, because you're right. It makes no sense to just arbitrarily make a decision, let's lower now. We need to lower that millage rate on a steady basis and on a predictable basis and a planned basis, and not for this year. I'm talking about we're going to start, next 2 years, then we'll start chipping away and see what we can do 5 years. You know what I mean? It's just we got to look at it on the long term, because how we got in this shape was decisions that were made. All right, everything looks good this year, let's lower. Also, the next thing you're having to raise up. We can't do that anymore.
One of the first meetings I was at here as a commissioner, we were told it was going to take, 10 years to rebuild our reserve? And so
we did it.
Well, we did our job, is what we did, and once we have rebuilt it, then I'd like to, like I said, start rolling back.
Maintaining the reserves.
Yeah.
That's right, and that is the plan, and that is our plan, because the burden of the county taxpayers in the past that own land and houses here have toted the burden.
And I know people don't like that public service tax, but everybody pays it. It's
a fair tax. That's right. And our intent is to take the burden off of the homeowners and property owners and businesses in Wakulla County, and the only way we can do that is by lowering their ad valorem tax.
That's a good point you brought up. You said that we had a couple $100,000 in above anticipated revenues. Is that from the CST, the PST?
CST.
The Communication Services Tax brought in more revenues than anticipated.
Yeah, and as well as we did collect realize we budget 95% of the ad valorem, and we collected 102%. So that's where, between that and CST, that's where that came from.
Each time that I meet with David, pretty much my first statement is, don't you grow government. Do not grow government. As we accumulate money, then we reduce ad valorem tax. We don't grow government with a surplus of money. So the citizens will get they will see a reduction in their ad valorem tax as soon as we get the reserve fund up. And especially the reserve, we might as well ask FEMA not to even bother us by coming to town.
That Wednesday, that could very well be the conversation we have with them.
If we can't get $1 out of them this time, just tell them to stay wherever they are. We don't
right
need
now,
this.
we're wasting a whole bunch of staff time.
But David's proposal, basically, each time I've talked to him, is to create that reserve, which we're doing, and as soon as we get that reserve in shape, then as Mike says, we're going to start reducing, and David has the same theory, that we're going to start reducing that ad valorem tax. And, yeah, that's...
The lower we can get the ad valorem tax, the steadier government, the more predictable government that we have, more businesses and more families will move to Wakulla County, and we will grow. And that is proven. That's the research when I was in business. That's what we looked at. We went to areas that had good, stable, sound government that was working for the people, and that's what we look for. And that's what I think, that's where we're at, and we've got a plan to get there. We just got to be patient, and we've got to work with that plan, and we're going to get there. And like I say, the purpose is we're going to start lowering that ad valorem. It could be as early as next year is what we're looking at right now. So,
Okay, thank you. I'll entertain a motion.
What does it need to say?
Accept the report.
I'll accept the report.
second.
And approve the preliminary year-end estimate. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
County Minister, you've asked to do an update on FEMA?
Well,
we sort of started to stray into there a minute ago.
I'm sorry about that. What we want to do is Heather and I will be meeting with the head FEMA folks for the region, the JFO, which is the Joint Field Office, in Tallahassee on Wednesday. They're officially going to tell us that they're going to deny about $170,000 on one project, $30,000 on a lift station that they claim that we don't own, that ESG owns, which is ridiculous, and many other things. So one of the things that I just wanted to bring you up to date, that it doesn't look good. I think at best, if we get any funding out of them, it's going to be probably around $200,000. But as the day went on, after I talked to you guys earlier, each one of you individually, I got another phone call, and then we may not even get that.
Does the CERT team not have any?
CERT team, we're having a CERT team meeting tomorrow at 12. They're going to talk to us, as well as we're going to bring in our congressional delegation and our senators. We're going to bring their delegations in and try to let them know what's going on as well. But like I say, we're not the only county. Every county that was affected by Tropical Storm Debbie is feeling the same thing.
Can I interject something here?
Sure.
And you and I talked about it with Heather today, and Tim and Greg, but and Jerry, I respect what you said and certainly agree to a certain extent. But then on the other side of the coin is that if we give in, the government wins. Okay? That's what's happened to these other counties. They have thrown the towel in and said, we're not going to fight you anymore. It's just too hard. But I'm of the opinion that the president signed off and said, you're supposed to get this money. They've made it so hard that you can't get the money. They're trying to make it so hard you can't get the money. But I want to fight the knuckleheads.
I think we should.
And I asked Heather today, what can we do legally to fight them? Because here's where I'm at, and I want to say all this the correct way, is I'd like to see us have a commissioner. I certainly appreciate what David's doing, but I think a commissioner ought to go to that meeting on Wednesday and stand up on the table and jump up and down and say, we're not going to go, fine, you tell us no, tell us who we got to notify, and once they deny it, then we let Heather loose legally to challenge them. I mean, until they say no, until they deny it finally, then we can't do anything. Is that right, Heather?
Are you volunteering?
I don't mind trying to go.
What time is the meeting?
At 11 o'clock on Wednesday?
I can probably go Wednesday. I just happen to have the ability to be able to go this Wednesday. Well, I don't want to. I want to make them mad. I want them to know that Wakulla County's not going to roll over and just say, fine, we don't want to do this, because I think they owe us the money. And I think it's ludicrous that all these cycles of storms we've had, they've never said anything about our contractor, ESG or Veolia or anybody else that's ever been there. It's always been approved. And for them to even hint at the idea that a pump station belongs to ESG is crazy. And they need to hear that. And maybe we just need to send a mad commissioner up there to show it themselves, he or she, and let them know that we're going to go out. We'll just quit and go out of the meeting and say, fine, we'll talk to you legally from here on.
Right, and I agree with, we need that as, because, Scott and myself and Cleve, we have slammed enough doors, hit enough tables, and I've hollered at them till I'm tired of hollering at them.
Well, I talked to Congressman Sutherland at the meeting Thursday night about this, and in front of all the public that were there, and I told them how sorry the federal government was treating us in respects to this, and FEMA especially. But it would look like the state would get behind us.
Well, state's behind us.
Okay, if we got them behind us and we got some legal stance to challenge it, then I think that's what we ought to do.
Well, that's one thing Heather wants to ask you.
Yeah, that's why we added this on tonight, was because we did want to get authority from you to pursue legal remedies as those opportunities arise.
I move that we send a commissioner, and that we allow Heather to use whatever remedies it takes to address it.
Here a second. Within reason, I'll second. I mean, I want to spend the.
If it's as simple, if one part of it's as simple as we know that ESG owns the pumping station, the sewer station, and we own it. Well, if they're saying we don't, then they lose.
But we have documented everything over and over. These folks have spent hours and hours and hours of meetings and documentation, and it's ridiculous that they don't own up. I think they're just trying to buy us out. The time will pass, and we'll get sick of it, and we'll give in. We're not going to give in.
Yeah, because we checked every single box. We did exactly what they said to do in 2 arduous meetings. We did everything down to the T. And the next day, we got all that information, we gave it to them, they changed the rules. The next day, they changed the rules. The next day, now they're claiming the ESG's contract's not valid. It's like I'm telling you, we cannot rely on FEMA. So
I was in Cleve's job. It was the exact opposite. I don't know if you remember the state guy that wrote the PWs actually got in trouble for writing too many of them.
Well, they're saying that
money like that.
I mean, one of the things that got me today was that they're not even going to look at dirt roads that were damaged. That's crazy. We got paved roads that are washed out, and they won't even address.
I think I'm glad you can go. If something happens or you can't go, let us know, because I was going to bring it up after the meeting, just to have somebody there to attend.
Mike's going.
Yeah, Commissioner Stewart's going to go. And if you can't, if there's some reason that you can't,
you're mad, you go.
if for some reason you can't
express yourself better.
For some reason you can't go, Commissioner Stewart, let us know. I'll
plan on it.
I'll be glad.
I'll meet with them about the maps.
I'll plan on going.
Okay.
With you, David.
Okay, good.
And Heather, you going to be there? Oh yeah.
And we've talked many times as the problems continue to happen, because I've tried to avoid redundancy of emails and things. So if we're at the point where we need to start contacting people, I just send a couple emails. Let me know so that
we're at that point.
Yeah.
Now, let me tell you that I could go
if I can.
Well, if you wanted me to go, because I was, like I said, I had Cleve's job. I've dealt with them.
I know you understand
hundreds of times.
I think.
So I'm not trying to
if
buck out.
Commissioner Stewart can go, I think it's good for Commissioner Stewart to go.
That's fine.
Okay.
So what y'all think?
If I can, then we'll send
Randy to go.
Okay. If you can, then we'll send Randy. Okay. All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? It passed unanimously.
I didn't get a much in a second.
Ellen got it.
Yeah.
I made the motion.
Randy seconded it. All right, we're going to move on to citizens to be heard. It is 6:29, so we're going to get a 1 minute early start on this item this evening. We have one citizen to be heard this evening. It's Mr. Pierce Withers. You'll have 3 minutes to address your concern.
We have an add-on
Oh,
resolution.
I only had the one add-on. I apologize.
It was passed out and I added it on, the resolution of intent.
I apologize. We'll still do the citizen to be heard, then we'll come back to the last discussion item.
Okay.
Or last add-on. All right, sir.
Good evening. I just wanted to add my voice to the chorus of frustration over FEMA. I just got my renewal for my flood insurance, and I was reading in the Wakulla Times some of the quotations from the last meeting. There seems to be a lot of misinformation floating around. People's premiums are being jacked. Mine just went to $5,000, and I live 20 feet above sea level. And the information that I understand is that Congress is now authorizing a 20% increase per year for flood insurance premiums, which means in 5 years the premium can double which means in 5 years my premium could be as high as $10,000. I live in Tide Creek Landing in Ochlockonee Bay. We're not exactly even on the water.
What was it before, if you don't mind me asking?
$3,500. It went from, in the last 5 years, it's gone from $2,000 to $5,000. They've sent out inspectors in the middle of the year to inspect people's homes, and they're combing the property appraisers' records to try and find people who have storage rooms under their houses. And that $2,000 of my premium is because I have a storage room under my house. And my insurance agent told me if I wanted to rip my storage room out, that would make my premium go down. But what I'm here to do is offer something radical, and that is, why don't we withdraw from the flood insurance program altogether? This community decides whether or not it wants to participate. It's not something we have to do. There's a lot of government services that they dangle as a carrot, SBA loans and other things that they try and allude to that they won't give you if you don't participate in the National Flood Insurance Program. But if it's not available in our county, then the lenders here cannot require you to carry it. And most of the people that I've talked to in Wakulla County say that they just like to pay off their mortgages so that they don't have to carry flood insurance. I don't know many people who think that paying $5,000 to $10,000 a year waiting on the 100-year flood is a good way to spend your money. And so I'm here to ask this board if y'all would look into what would be the implications for actually just pulling Wakulla County out of the flood insurance program altogether.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. We can...
That's a good...
We can talk about it. At discussion items, we can talk about that at the end of the meeting. Okay, perfect. That was our only citizen to be heard this evening. We have one more add-on item. Thank you, Mr. Withers, for coming out this afternoon. And we'll probably be a discussion item shortly if you want to stay to hear.
He can't talk.
Right, but he can listen.
Right.
Ready?
Yep.
Okay. You have before you a request for the board to approval to schedule and advertise a public hearing to consider adopting a resolution of intent to use the uniform method of collection. This is an annual item that you approve in December. It has to be advertised once a week for 4 consecutive weeks. Generally, your meetings fall. That would bring this to your first meeting in November. Because of the early schedule this year, we needed to bring it today. To get authority to advertise this, you would have a public hearing on this in December at your December meeting, and adopt the resolution of intent as either presented or as modified, and then notice is provided to the 2 constitutional officers, the tax collector and the property appraiser. Even if you adopt this in December as written, it does not bind you to go forward with any of these programs. It merely preserves your right in the event. Say a citizens group comes forward and they use a voluntary petition process, they want their road paved. It would allow you to use the tax bill to collect those assessments.
Make a motion we approve option 1. Is that good enough, or I gotta say the whole thing?
No, that's fine.
Second.
Excellent. We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Up next this evening, we have one commissioner agenda item. Commissioner Arts requests board discussion on revisiting residential impact fees.
You had 2.
One's been tabled.
I tabled one. And at first, I'd like to apologize that this did not make the published agenda. I actually had it submitted the day before the agenda was finalized, but there was some miscommunication about whether I was going to revise it or not, and so it didn't get included. So I apologize. At different points in conversation, I've gotten the impression that there are probably 3 of us who are open to assessing some limited impact fees to help as new residents move in, to help provide the services and facilities that they need. And in particular, we've talked a lot about recreation facilities for youth. We know that our ball fields are overcrowded in Medart. We've talked about a northern recreation park with regulation soccer fields. And it's in that infrastructure plan we just looked at. But if you total those up, that I don't think we are realistically going to get enough restore money to do all of those things. So, and I have a feeling that maybe a Northern Rec Park will be lower on the priority list than some of the coastal kinds of things. So I just brought this item to see whether there was any receptivity among the board to start, since Commissioner Merritt finished his assessment, if there was any willingness to impose perhaps just a park and recreation impact fee. I personally would like to see a little bit more than that. I know I've talked to Chief Morgan, and we have enough money to do the minimal that he needs for the fire and EMS headquarters. But he would like a little bit larger budget and to be able to have a little nicer headquarters and stations. So, I would be interested in possibly at least the EMS fee. So I just, I'm not going to, I guess, do I need to make a motion to have discussion, or can I get some sense of whether there's any willingness to talk about imposing any of these?
I think we can discuss before it's up to board will, so we can discuss it for a little while. You want to have the one citizen talk, we're going to have to
make a motion. Okay.
I would be willing to look at it once our housing comes back to the pre-boom levels. I wouldn't want to do it right now, but
I can agree with you, Randy.
once we get back to a stable housing market, absolutely. Well, but I don't want to do anything right now to discourage the housing market, albeit fair. I agree. I came up with the numbers myself, but ours don't match. But I said that night I would agree to it. But once we get back up to maybe a 2001, 2002 building level, where right now it's almost nothing.
We had close to 100 or nearly approaching 100 houses built in the year and a half that we've just been doing nothing.
Well,
and so you figure that's at least 100. I mean, I would estimate that's at least 100 more kids that we have not collected the funds to build additional, youth recreation facilities for.
Yeah.
And if we get behind, that's the problem. Is once
so the concern that's going to happen for me, we're going to have two. One, we can't move this fast enough to do in the next 2 months. To have it, I think it would come back after all of us are off, if the election has happened, is my understanding currently. So when it's reoccurring, so I don't want to move too quickly. I'm hoping that I'll still be here, but if I'm not, I don't want to start setting things up so that they can come back. But the other question that's happening, that was a rambling
we've
answer.
already done that on several things.
Yeah, well, the other question that's happening, we haven't. My observation with the impact fees is we haven't really been spending the impact fee money that we've collected. We're spending it now as we approach an expiration of it. But I don't even know that we've allocated the rec park. I guess we probably allocated the rec park recreation fees now.
We have.
That's a very good point, Alan. The impact fees can only be used for new facilities. In other words,
like the Northern Rec Park.
Okay, all right. Let's take that for example. That's a good example.
$2 million.
All right, $2 million. We collected $30,000 to say in the last year and a half. How long before the impact fees have to be given back?
7 years.
7 years. Let's say 7 years from now we've collected $200,000 to pay for that $1 million park. If we don't spend it, you're supposed to give it back. It's supposed to be used only for new facilities. I understand what you're saying. Now, on the flip side of that, if we had the impact fee, maybe those 100 houses wouldn't have got built, but instead 60 would have got built, and some may favor that.
Well, and that's where, and I'm not going to go into all the data again, that you don't, having the impact fees doesn't discourage building houses. And if you look at, you're talking about $91. What our study showed at 100% was $329, and that gets added to a mortgage. So we're talking about just a few maybe dollars a year for some of these families looking at that one fee.
Are you advocating the numbers I put forward? I couldn't really understand. Are you advocating the
I put them for comparison.
January 2007? Let's take.
You were only, okay, if you were only, well, the reason I have two figures there is because I wasn't sure. You adjusted for, you had a credit adjustment, but the base rate was different too, and I didn't know if that was a mistake or that was intentional.
What I did was went back, in the original impact fee, they valued park property at like $1 million an acre.
Mm-hmm.
Which maybe it is in Shell Point, but certainly it's not in Medart. Otherwise, there'd be some very rich people in Medart. So I just used $500,000 an acre for park property. That doesn't include facilities. That's just the property.
Mm-hmm.
And when I used the $500,000 an acre and applied the credit, I came up with $91.
Well, if all this board was willing to do was $91 for each new house, I would do it. Unless our attorney told us that she didn't feel that would stand up legally, that we needed to do the $329. The concern I have about your figure is that I don't think you've done any adjustments for the fact that our FERDAP grants had dried up, which was being used for a lot of things, and that was factored into the other.
It didn't offset it much, so I understand what you're saying, and I don't know if I used I can make the numbers say whatever you want to say, to be blatantly honest with you. There's assumptions you make on your discount rate that you got to back out 28 years of revenue. You change that a half a point, it changes everything. And I just based it on 20 years of inflationary rate. But if I said, well, I think the discount rate's going to be, the lower the discount rate is, David, isn't the present worth smaller or bigger? It's smaller. Inversely proportional. So if you assume a bigger discount rate, then your present worth number is lower. It's it's kind of complicated, but
Commissioner Moore wants to make a comment.
Basically, your buyers, you're talking about an impact fee. Your buyers are already impacted, and they can only afford so much on their monthly. They can hardly afford, when I was in business, they could hardly afford the insulation. If a builder built a home under a good sense plan and somebody else built one not under a good sense plan, there was usually a couple of $1,000s in cost there, and you would find a 9-to-1 sale on the non-good sense home just because of that couple of $1,000. But that buyer's already been hit with a transfer tax, all your environmental taxes, your building fees, the new taxes that come with a property. So it's not as though that buyer is not getting taxed. He's getting taxed very heavily in a whole group of ways when he starts buying the house. And this would just be one additional tax. There's a point in time when you take each little increment, but you add all the little increments together, you get a big increment that can slow your growth, or it can just kill your sales completely.
Well, I think the flip side of that is, first of all, the price comparison is really here versus Tallahassee. For a lot of the people that have moved here in recent years, it's because the housing is so much less here. But at some point, people are also going to be concerned about how far they have to drive to take their child to a rec park that's on the other side of the county. Also, how late their kids have to stay up. My son has played sports there, and there aren't fields that kids can practice on. They schedule the games and practices later and later at night, and young children are coming home way past their bedtime and then still having to drive to the north end of the county. So, you know what I mean? If you want people to stay here, as opposed to living here for a few years and dealing with the congestion and those kind of things and then trying to sell, you need to address those. And the 90 that Randy's proposing, or the whatever, some other fee isn't, I think, enough to affect.
And again, the trick for this, for me, is, we can direct. I think the best we could do tonight is direct staff to try and look at this over and come back with a proposal to figure out where the money's needed and how the money will be spent. But I don't know what the next step. I don't know what the next step will be.
I personally would not like to direct staff to do anything. I think they're pretty busy as they are. Please excuse me.
I agree, Alan, with what you said early on, is that we're too late in the process of this board. We need to wait and let this be a project for the next board. Whoever that is setting up here needs to move on to that. I don't want to go down that road and then they not even want it and waste all that time.
I'm pretty sure Jerry and I will both be sitting here no matter what happens, so I'm not in favor of, at this time, I wanted to be able to justify the numbers in my head, but I don't want to, those are the numbers I'd like to see when we bring it back at a later point. And I have a question, if I could, about the fire, Heather. When we did the MSBU study, did we use the impact fee that was in effect at the time to offset some of the...
There wasn't an impact fee in effect at the time, so if an impact fee was going in, you would look at your fire and...
You would have to lower the MSBU. Now, also be mindful, though, that the MSBU study says our MSBU should be what? 85?
I think the max was even higher than 85.
But we don't have it set at that level.
No, you do not.
So let's say the study says 100, we got it at 75, we got $25 worth of fat to cut out before we have to lower the 75, right? So that argument, although valid, is not applicable in this situation because we're not charging the maximum that the study got. You see what I'm saying?
But I think the argument is that if this board makes a policy decision that you want growth to pay for its impacts rather than having everyone pay through their annual fire assessment, then the credit logically goes taking the impact fees off the fire assessment budget and not vice versa.
I agree.
But it's a policy decision for the board.
But again, if it's set at 100 by not accounting for the impact fees, and then it drops to 90 or 95 when you do account for them, it's still not at the level that we have it set at now. It's still above it. You see what I'm saying? So,
but I know our fire, they haven't asked for it this year, but they had indicated to us when we went to 75 that that was not going to be enough, and that they really were looking for an increase in the future. And, it's part of me is that we're talking about wanting to lower taxes for the people who live here, but when the people who live here are having to also pay for the services that the new people are getting, that breeds some pretty strong resentment. And at least among people I talk to, there's a lot of support for having at least new homes, if not, anybody new, businesses included, shoulder part of the, what the increase is going to be.
I'm going to go back to a statement I made back a long time ago, just real briefly. When I was a kid growing up here, there was no rec park at all. And that rec park came into existence somehow. I don't think impact fees paid for it. I don't think there were impact fees. Maybe they were. But that rec park, because of all the people that came here, we have a rec park. We didn't have a rec park when I was a kid. We do have a rec park now. The county facilities we have, the amenities, the boat ramps, are so much better than when I was a kid. And those upgrades or new facilities weren't paid for with impact fees. They were paid for by new people paying taxes.
Well, not necessarily. Some was paid for grants, and some was paid, for example, this fire and EMS station that we're going to build, that is going to be built with impact fees that were collected in the past. So, we have been using impact fees. Even they were collected for a decade. Not at a full amount, but they did provide some important revenue to this county. My thinking is that, if you look, based on our population and the way we're dispersed, something I've read early on after I became a commissioner said we should have 6 EMS stations right now. So you can point to, we have 3, and look, isn't that great, we did that, but if we should have had 6, then we're still behind. So
I'm not arguing with your logic. I'll throw it one more time, but I just don't think this is the time.
It doesn't sound like to me tonight there'll be a second.
Could we still have, I'd still like to hear citizen comment. Is there a way to do that?
Well, Chuck, do you want to come make your comment? And we just have you make your comment.
You can be consistent, Chuck.
Yes, I am.
No motion.
Chuck, yes, speaking for CCAL. Impact fees. You know, you keep talking about your property taxes covering the cost of new business, and it doesn't. The cost of community service suggests that if when people move into the county, they're actually costing you more money. That's the whole the point of impact fees. You talk about business. The quality of life is going to drive progress and growth in this county, not how cheap something is. The quality of life. If people want to be here, they will come here. If they don't want to be here, they won't. It's not about the numbers. If you can make it as cheap as you want. You can go race to the bottom, make it so that the developers and the real estate people can make lots of money really quickly, but it won't improve our quality of life. Okay? It's about the people that are here. It's not about, some future income that's going to come in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. We don't have a motion, so there's not going to be a vote on this item tonight. Is there any further discussion on it before we move on to the county attorney's items?
No, thank you.
All right, everyone, moving on to county attorney items this evening. You have any items this evening?
No.
County administrator, any items this evening?
I've talked enough, thank you.
Discussion items by Commissioner. Commissioner Stewart, you indicated that you had a discussion item?
Yes, if you will take one of these, and
We have a written discussion. Oh, okay.
and I apologize for not getting on there sooner, but this is a result of me going to the Restore Act meeting that Congressman Sutherland hosted. Take one of those two. I'm giving you this handout. This was a handout that Sutherland had there at the meeting. I went last Thursday night. Sheree Keeler and I went and down to Apalachicola. He hosted a meeting there for the counties that he represents in reference to the Restore Act. And as you know, Congressman Sutherland is one who he and Senator Nelson, I think it was really most of the lion's share of the work was Sutherland writing the language in that bill that was passed and signed into law by the president. Now, what's happened since is all I'm asking tonight is that we authorize the chairman to write a letter, which is referenced in there. The letter, the language will be, and the chairman sign it. There's a group called NERDA, and that acronym is in there, spells out what it stands for. But if NERDA if the money, right now the money is going to flow right to the counties. First time in the history of federal money not passing through the state or somebody else's hands before it gets, the counties have never gotten money like that. There's 4 pots of money that's going to be divided up in this Restore Act. And what David was talking about tonight is that pot 1, if you will. The other 3 pots they're going to have different hands on them. But this one pot 1 money, which is going to be multi-million dollars coming to Wakulla County and other counties for us to use, and part of the process is what David's going through now that has to be done. If NERDA touches it, then it gets tainted, and it won't come to us. It'll be like it's going through FEMA, and that's the trouble spot. And we don't want that to happen. We want
I will second your motion.
All the counties in the consortium are doing this. We're just one of many that's going to do it, 8 counties. And we need to get this letter off as quickly as we can. I asked Congressman Sutherland in front of everybody else. I said, what can we do to help you? He said, this is the best way we can do it. You guys send a letter. They're going to get FACT to do it. They're going to get the NACO to do it. And so there'll be a lot of letters going in, hopefully, to keep NERDA's hands off the money. Okay. And the president shouldn't do this. He has signed the bill into effect. He shouldn't renege on this and go back and do something different. And that's where we want to put the pressure on him to not do this.
I understand that also, going to Commissioner Stewart's remarks, NERDA has been involved in the BP oil restoration since its inception almost.
Inception,
and to date, and that's 4 or 5 years ago. 2 years. They've approved and haven't funded, but they've approved 1 project in Escambia County.
And they haven't sent the check yet to pay for it.
And they have not funded it. That's out of 2 years and
And we've applied, I mean, every county in the
Hundreds
Panhandle's
of
applied.
projects have went in.
We've applied for several NERDA projects.
And so if it goes to NERDA, we just lost every bit of that money.
Yes.
You will not see it.
Or it'll have so many strings attached
That's
to it
right.
until
You
you
won't
can't
want it.
spend it or ever get your
And
reimbursement back.
what's being argued is in the settlement, they're going to have to pay NERDA fines, they have to pay the Restore Act, the Clean Water Act fines. They're trying to trade these fines for those fines. And I appreciate you doing that. I've sent emails as an individual regarding this, but I would love to, I don't know who's copied
Y'all
this.
keep these handouts, because this is going to be,
This
is coming, this money's going to be years coming. It's not going to happen this year or next year. I don't expect this money soon. I really don't. Like the way Sutherland talked, it's going to take time before we start seeing this trail of money coming, because they don't even know how much they're going to give us yet.
Yeah.
But it's way out. So I move that we authorize you to, Chairman, send a letter to the U.S. Department of Justice in support of adhering to the Restore Act and not to allow global negotiations to impose additional requirements on Florida and its counties.
We have a motion and a second. The current theory is we should know how much money it's going to be early next calendar year, and then we should start seeing it move forward from there.
We hope.
Yeah.
Sutherland wasn't confident of that the other night, so.
Okay, any further discussion? All in favor of this item?
Aye.
Passes unanimously. Commissioner Merritt, do you have an additional?
Yeah, if we can, I'd like to bring up, Mr. Withers brought up to us earlier, if we can just discuss it briefly about FEMA, as it pertains to the flood zones, and we're fighting that still, and I've asked that question. I haven't got a good answer. I agree that we ought to look at what the ramifications are for pulling out of the. I'd like to know. I mean, I'm not saying I'm for it. I want to hear what happens if we do get out of it.
I'd appreciate a report from our county attorney on what the ramifications are. And you just not tonight. You can come up with it.
Well, that's good, because I have no idea what.
Yeah. But like a memo. Just
One of the basic ones will be financing.
I assume that means you could get that.
Financing.
This gentleman did mention, though, that, well, here again, a lender, if you can't insure his property, you may not have to take his insurance, but he doesn't have to give you the loan either. So,
there's some pros and cons to it.
my insurance is greater.
That's one of the biggest hang-ups.
So just trying to better understand that.
And
My
also,
insurance
what if
rated-
you own your house outright and you want flood insurance? What if Miss Arts wants flood insurance at her house? I don't know if it's paid off, or I'm just using it for
Yeah,
example.
I actually would like it.
Okay, but
And-
then if we pulled out, you couldn't get it.
No, I know, and the people who suffered with Tropical Storm Debbie, and I wish we had Scott here to talk, people who had flood insurance were better off than the people who didn't.
I agree. That's
And
why I want to see what the pros and
I
cons are.
have it, I'm not even required to, but I have it.
How much is your premium?
Mine is low, but I'm not I'm way far away.
She's on a floodplain. She lives off.
I live in the high tax.
You're going to speak. If someone would like to have Mr. Withers come back and speak, someone has to ask Mr. Withers.
But you
to come
make
back
a
and
good
speak.
point, is
We
that
have
then
to
for
come back to the
people
vote.
who want it, who like to have insurance in the case of some kind of a serious disaster, then
Finally-
they're in trouble.
My concern is, I know there were several people that flooded during Debbie that weren't in a flood zone.
Yeah. But the other side of the coin is, guys, we got people whose fees are going astronomical. They're not going to be able to afford them or sell their. This is a mess. This is a mess imposed on us by government, big government again, and we need to look at both sides of it. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying I'm
I'm
for
willing to look
it.
at
So,
it.
are you going to make a motion to ask for a report from the county
Yes.
staff?
I can see something before you get on that, Mike. Your lenders, they don't have to make the loan. In other words, if you're going to buy a house, and let's say we opt out of FEMA, the lenders just say, well, sorry about that. And I think they probably 100% would say, sorry about that. Now, if you're paying cash for a house, that's neither here nor there anyway. But I think, I think your lenders, They would not have anything to do with us. We would become a wasteland.
Is that a second on your on Commissioner Stewart's motion for a report from staff?
As long as it doesn't, it's a
A
free
report from the attorney, I guess. I really don't even think it's necessary because I know the lenders.
That's your basic problem, is your lenders would pull out.
Probably something we could just print up off the internet.
That's
you know?
true. That will happen.
We could just look it up on the internet.
Yeah, I'll ask you to speak. Would you?
Mr. Withers. That's perfectly appropriate. Commissioner Moore has requested that Mr. Withers come back to the microphone. Mr. Withers.
And I apologize, and I should have said this earlier. And again, I'm just a citizen, and I've come to ask y'all to look into this on behalf of many people. I bought my house 3 years ago. This is public information. I don't mind sharing it, for $325,000. It's my understanding from the appraisal I got last week, it's dropped to $250,000. So I've lost $75,000 on my house in Ocotney Bay if I had to sell it today. That hurts. I'm already paying taxes in Wakulla County. I already have a mortgage in Wakulla County. I think there are lots of other people who are in the same boat with me. I had a bunch of my neighbors over. We're in sticker shock over our flood insurance renewal premiums. And there was an article online, and I saw other ones in the local newspaper, that people in Sop Shoppy who had gotten flooded, who said they've gotten their renewals now, and they can't afford their renewal flood insurance premiums. And there are places in Florida, and again, this is hearsay, but it's my understanding that Apalachicola does not participate in the flood insurance program, and the city of Sop Shoppy does not, and they're making loans in those places all the time. So I think before y'all dismiss it, I'd like to ask you to look into it with open eyes, with the idea that there might be something to be learned from this process, because I can tell you that if our tax base continues to decline and property values keep going down, because the flip side of this, if I had to sell my house today and put on the disclosure that my insurance is $8,000 or $9,000 a year, who's going to buy it anyway? I mean, and that's the real issue for me, is I'm already taking a bath on this deal, and I'm already a Wakulla County citizen paying taxes. I could care less whether the bank makes any more loans in Wakulla County. I'm trying to figure out how I can continue to pay my own mortgage and pay my own flood insurance premiums.
Yeah, I understand that, because my flood insurance is much greater than yours, and I don't know.
Hope at Rogers Atkins, Vaughn, whatever it is now, said that they quoted somebody on Live Oak Island, I think, $45,000 for their flood insurance.
With the new FEMA, here again, the folks do not understand the impact of the new FEMA regulations, because I had a gentleman today tell me, an hour before this meeting, he told me that he looked to buy a house in a new flood zone area, and he didn't buy it. He said he was not going to buy it because it was under the new FEMA Flood Zone Act. Now, we're going to making the assumption that a person on the coast pays $100 taxes, a person up north pays $100 taxes. The coastal property under FEMA is going to drop to $50. The values are going to drop. Right. Well, the people up in north are going to have to pick up that, assuming that government occupies the same expense that it has. So there's going to be a shift. The people down in the south part of the county are going to pay less taxes because the values are going to be less. And the people in the northern part are going to have an increase in taxes simply because the values are going to be more, or at least the same, because the cost of government is pretty much going to be stable as we go forward.
But it defies logic that property farther away from the coast in the state of Florida would be valued more than property values closer to the water. Well, I can tell you, ma'am, I've lived in Florida for 48 years of my life, that if you want the most expensive property is close to the ocean, unless I'm missing something.
That's what I'm saying.
But it's going to go down, and it's the economic engine of Wakulla County, along the coast is where we're being hit, and I would ask that y'all look into this, is all I'm saying, because it sounds like y'all, and there's misinformation, a lot of misinformation about this. Somebody was quoted in the paper saying that if you already have an existing policy, your premiums aren't going to go up. That's not true. I'm here to tell you that they did a midterm adjustment on my premium. They jacked it 50%, and when I got renewal, it went up again.
Would that have been because you added to the ground floor?
No, I haven't done anything to it.
Commissioner Arts has a comment?
I'm sorry.
Well, I had a question, and that was, you said that your insurance is $5,000 now, and it would come down if you didn't have that ground floor storage area.
That's right.
And how much would it come down?
$2,000 if I ripped out my storage room.
Okay, which I think probably was, I mean, initially you were told not to build that, weren't you?
No. Initially, when my brother Ben Withers built this house, he came, and the flood zone at that point is if you had an enclosure of 360 square feet or smaller, it was considered to be consistent with what the guidelines were for FEMA and the county. But they since have changed that. See, they keep raising the bar, and so every time a house sells or they come out and inspect, they change your premium.
Did your place have breakaway walls?
It has breakaway walls. It was built it was state-of-the-art construction when it was constructed in 2004. It's 20 feet above sea level.
I'm willing to look, maybe if it was just a brief, here's what would happen, and we just print something off the internet or something.
That's all I'm asking.
I'm willing to look at anything, but
We'll certainly look at it. I don't think you're going to find a legal document that says if you do this, these are the ramifications, because it sounds like they're going to ripple through a lot of different areas. So, I mean, we'll all have to tap into other expertise on your staff to do that. But, I mean, we'll try to be as
I would
comprehensive as
encourage, if this
possible.
is something that you want to, I would encourage you to do some research. If you can identify other places that have done this, that we could at least be directed toward, because right now we're very understaffed, and you already heard just a minute ago Jerry was saying he didn't want anything else to be assigned to staff, so
I don't mind, I really don't mind just a brief look at it. It isn't going to take a week to review this. I think you can pretty much do a review of this in a couple of hours, really, somebody who knows. So I don't have any problem with our attorney doing it. I have the same elevation you have. I built the same year you did. So yeah, it's bad news. I hate to hear you say that because I hadn't got my new insurance bill.
If policies renewing after October 1 are the ones that are reflecting a giant premium increase.
It seemed like that FEMA, here again, you can't trust government, but it seemed like that they said that if you were already built, that everything would stay the same, but that's evidently not the case.
It's not the case at all, and they keep changing. Every time I think they redraw the maps or every time they change the specifications, then they can come in, and if your house changes hands, then they really stick it to you. And I think it's going to be really difficult for people to qualify for loans in any event here if they have to.
It's going to be a big change, and it's coming real quick.
I think we're going to, it sounds like we're going to have our staff look into it more. Any information you have, email all of us, and we'll keep talking about it as we move forward.
Great, thank you.
Thank you for bringing it. Okay. Any further discussion on the FEMA aspect? FEMA?
Okay. First of all,
any more discussion about what we just finished talking about? No. Okay, now we're moving to Commissioner Mayor.
Okay, I was at the Tennessee Builder Association meeting the other day, and they told me how Leon County is going through, is trying to renew their program with PACE. It's Public-Private Economic Recovery, what's it called? Property Assessed Clean Energy Program. I told Ms. Arts about it earlier. She said the county's been working on it. If nothing else, I just want to try to bring it back to not to the forefront, but just freshen everybody's minds. This program is where you can borrow money to do energy efficiency upgrades to your house or hurricane proof it. Not hurricane, you know what I mean, put clips in, but you can do insulation, solar panels, solar hot water heaters, and the money is paid back through an assessment on your property taxes. Therefore, it can be rolled into your monthly escrow payment. I think there's a problem with Freddie Mac and
right, that's why it...
Yeah.
It's the least priority problem. Is what it is.
Lane is where it gets
It's a real big problem with, we go in and a homeowner gets money to put solar panels on. Where you impose an assessment, that's a first priority lien, and the mortgage companies are challenging that priority.
Okay, well, the information I got from the director of this program was at least they had a resolution. Maybe I could bring it back supporting the program, or I'm not suggesting anything radical, but I thought it was a really good idea.
Yeah, it's a good program.
Maybe that'd be something I would do if you could. Your cost savings could be over a long term, especially for a hot water heater.
And we've included these types of improvements in the resolution of intent each year. In the event this program comes to fruition, you could use the tax bill.
Yeah, if you notice that the ordinance we passed earlier about the uniform collection method, one of the things on there was energy efficiency improvement and hurricane
Wind improvement.
wind, whatever. So anyway, I sent David the email. Maybe you could look at it, and I sent it to Sheree too. Next one on the FEMA, we met with them. What was it, David? I met with them in county staff with the water management district guys.
Tuesday of last week?
Tuesday last week. City of South Chopper there, City of St. Mark's there, and we had a lot of questions about areas. For example, you'd have a zone, which is a flood zone, then floating around in the middle of it would be a V zone. Floating around in the middle, like an island, nowhere around it. And I also found it a little curious. I'm sure this is not a conspiracy, but every building in the entire City of Tallahassee power plant is out of the V zone. It almost goes around it, just like in a U shape.
And the 2 tank farms.
And the 2 tank farms, that's correct. And I found that a little odd, so we circled that also. And they're going to go back to FEMA and ask about them. And I especially found it odd. You got a big V zone, and then there's a hole in the middle that's an A zone that's not in the V zone. And these are major implications, like he said about the storage thing. That's just because it's in a V zone. You can't have a storage shed if you're in a V zone over a certain size.
Yeah, because if this goes through, that means in the city of South Chopper, or city of St. Mark's, no one will be able to have a storage shed.
Unless you live at the power plant.
Does that mean a storage shed attached to the house or a separate storage?
Separate storage shed.
Separate storage shed.
Really? So you can't take your basement and redo a storage shed outside? Oh.
Not in the V zone. Not unless you can do it if it's like $500 or less.
Yeah, well, that's
theoretically.
That's not going to be very.
That's not a very nice shed. But I did talk, and these were the water management district people there, and I suggested that as we get further along in this, no matter what happens, if they could send to Sybil, who's GIS in Donnie's office, a list of areas where the flood zones have changed, maybe we could partner with them to send a letter to all the affected property owners, at least the homestead or the house, not a vacant piece of property, saying, because I have to ask, one of the most important things we can do is get the word out. Even if we partner with them, say they write the letter, we pay the postage, say it's 500 letters, to say your flood zone is going to change. You need to talk to your insurance agent and go look at it.
That's a good idea.
The worst thing that can happen is somebody comes to renew their insurance and they had no idea their flood zone changed, or they don't buy flood insurance, they go to sell their house 5 years from now and they say, well, you didn't have to have it before, you do now, it's $6,000 a year.
That's going to make a big difference.
That's a good idea.
So I think at least we should try to do that.
That's a very good idea.
And I talked with the GIS people about that.
You want to do that tonight? Do we have a motion, or?
No, I mean, Lou was there. I told the water management district guys to go back and see if they could, it's called a shape file in GIS. And I already talked to Sybil. She said if they'll send her this file, she can import it into our county database and it will spit out all the addresses of people.
You want to go ahead and get that approved tonight to go ahead and mail those letters?
No. Okay. I'm trying to get them to pay for it. Okay. I think they should pay for it, but I'm just saying worst case.
Thank you for looking through carefully to find things that don't make sense. That's what people need to
Pretty
be.
blatantly obvious.
That's good. It gives us some ammo.
Well, another interesting thing, too, if you look at Panacea, they ran these things called transects, which is they do a cross-section of it, and they did 3 right in the Panacea area, kind of tight together, and it really didn't change the Panacea flood zones much around the park, around Willie Park. They only did like 2 in St. Mark's that are kind of further apart, and they have to extrapolate between these 2 transects. You got to extrapolate it based on LiDAR data. So anyway, I asked them also if there's, talk to FEMA, see if you can go through St. Mark's at least and get more resolution on it. And so we did kick and scream some with them at least. I talked about the citizens to be heard thing about forming a policy, and what I had come up with is you can say whatever you want as long as you're not talking about individuals by name, be it either good or bad. In other words, you can't sit here and say Commissioner Art says, you can say the board's a sorry bunch of yo-yos, that's fine, but not point out any one person, or, you know what I'm saying, either good or bad, or you can make any kind of public announcement you want for any sort of event coming up, because I know people do that a lot. And that's the best I could find is, I think the problem that really rubs people wrong is mentioning people by name, hey, you Jerry Moore, this and that, or hey, you Randy Merritt, you this and that, and this and that. But if it's directed to the board, that's completely legitimate, I think. And I don't know if this is kind of along the lines of what y'all were thinking. How does that sound? Or
maybe after the political season, it'll go away.
I think,
well, it's been there for years.
The county attorney's got a comment.
Yeah, we have to, when you open up a forum for public comment, it's a limited public forum, and what you cannot do is pass anything that's going to impose content-based restrictions, which is what that would be.
But we can
certainly make it limited to county business only, but if a citizen wants to come up and say, you as a commissioner are doing a bad job conducting county business, then that's not something.
Can they say that about a staff person?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Well, and the only recourse a staff person, or not us, because I mean we knew what we were getting into, but a staff person, for example, is to sue for slander, which they're probably not going to win, and that's what I really hate to see is when staff members get called out by name in disparaging ways. I guess there's nothing we can do about it though, but we could at least restrict it to county.
When you get into slander and you get into disparagement, those are different and those are potentially actionable. What you can't do is tell them that they can't say it. You can take action after the fact if they say it.
Most people aren't going to want to do that.
I understand, but I just don't want you to get sued for.
But we can make we can make it have to be relevant. Currently, according to our current policy, it has to be relevant to county business.
And we can tighten that up, and we will do so.
Because a citizen raised the concern that we didn't have a strong policy on for what can be spoken at citizens to be heard, but we have a policy of how comments can be done throughout the meeting that doesn't somehow exclude citizens to be heard in the input, but it was being interpreted that it didn't say it under specifically citizens to be heard, so it wasn't applicable. But that's not the interpretation of the county attorney. Our public comments policy is for the whole meeting, be it whatever part of the meeting it's going on. It has to be relevant to county business.
You know, again, I'm not.
Otherwise, it wouldn't make sense. You can slander somebody during one part, but not another. I mean, that doesn't even make any sense. Of course, it applies to the whole thing.
Right.
Yeah.
That was my intention. But if we can't do that, it's fine. And I'm not trying to shut down citizen comment or limit it, but just kind of make it a little bit more civil.
And I think we can tighten it up. I think we can. Last meeting, you guys gave direction, I thought, to bring back something that has it pertaining solely to county business. The one place you may want to make an exception on that is on awards and presentations where there are announcements about community activities that don't have anything to do with county business as a whole.
And I'd like to be able to do that under citizens to be heard too, if that's. But that was my point, is that if somebody comes in late and they want to say, you know, I forgot, like the chamber did tonight, you know, if it's an announcement about an event, I'm not going to split hairs either.
Okay. Any other?
That's it.
I wanted to touch, and I'm just going to go through, so I'll get to you and you next, if that's okay. The ballot initiative that's coming up, and I emailed our county administrator earlier in the meeting. I'm hearing a lot of confusion about the Wakulla County initiative, a lot of misinformation. And I know we're not allowed to spend any money educating the community on what the ballot initiative and how it works, but I wanted to encourage staff to look into maybe putting out another press release, just providing information, because I'm on the ballot. I know I'm getting talked to a lot about people. What about this thing, this county? And there's an interpretation that it's going to give a tax break to every business in Wakulla County, which it's not doing. Commissioner Stewart came up with it. I'll let you speak to it more if you want to, but it allows us as a bargaining chip to help attract new businesses, and it'd be
or
expand existing businesses, and it's business by business debated at a public forum. It wouldn't ever be
blanket.
It's not a blanket tax exemption. It would be somebody wants to open a business that's going to employ a certain number of people, and we would discuss it in public whether we wanted to offer them an incentive to try and attract them. And this passing that amendment allows us one more bargaining chip to try and help bring more opportunity to Wakulla County.
Not just one job or
job. I mean, people talk about it as a tax write-off. It is to encourage business, but business brings jobs, and jobs are money that gets spent in this county. You know, that's the other side of that coin. To me, you gain a whole lot more than you give up in the way you give those tax write-offs. It's a whole lot big advantage to what you're going to get in jobs.
And let's take CSG, for example. I'm sitting on a vacant lot over there in the industrial park, probably paying very minimal property taxes, right? Right. They came in and they created hundreds of jobs, I think. And
300.
Let's say if this was in existence at the time, we could have offered CSG, all right, we're not going to increase your property taxes for another, whatever, 5 years, whatever we decided, based on the value of the improvements that you paid for and put on your, so we're getting the same revenue, but it created 300 jobs.
And they're making money to put food on their table and spend the money, most likely here in Wakulla County. It's just like you suggested earlier, Jerry, that little bit of money on the house can keep people from buying them. Same thing with a business, and it goes to business that wants to expand here. Some business can't do it because it might be, but if we give them a few $1,000s tax break, they're able to expand and hire more jobs, and it's good.
One thing you have to realize is you haven't lost anything that you don't already have.
Well,
That's right.
And the argument that I was talking about this over the weekend with my father, and he was talking about he wasn't automatically for it because he doesn't think there should be special tax breaks. And I was arguing with him that what other communities have that we don't have is a lot of infrastructure like railways, ports, interstates, and a lot of them also have this tax incentive already passed. We need to have whatever chits we can have because we can't add in a railroad, or we need this so we can bargain with other communities. So that's the idea. If it passes, it would help us have that bargain.
To the public.
Yeah, but it's a public decision. But I just want to make sure that there's not misinformation, because again, I've had several people tell me that we're just going to give an automatic tax break across the board to businesses.
Not given anything that you have.
Yeah. It doesn't have any immediate ramifications. It'd be for
And it's not automatic.
and it's not automatic.
The board would have to adopt a separate ordinance for any business that you were going to provide this incentive to.
And I just want to help make sure we're getting better understanding in the community, because there seems to be some confusion.
And if somebody wanted to build the world's largest internet cafe, for example, we probably wouldn't give them a tax break.
Okay.
You don't have to give the tax break.
And I know we have two reporters in the room. I look to y'all to help spread the word on it, so y'all can help make sure people understand more information about it. Mr. Moore?
Am I next?
You are.
Yeah. Thank you. I want to tell David, before next summer, somehow I want you to borrow the money to replace all the old air conditioners that's chewing up on our electric bill.
We're working on that.
Okay, and that way, if you do that, you can have air conditioning in your office.
That's the reason I keep it out, so it stays front and foremost in our minds.
Yeah, let all the people know that we don't have air conditioning in the board office.
That is right.
David is cheap.
He prefers to be called frugal.
Okay. Also, there's a stone crab festival in St. Mark's on September 20th. It's probably the premier event of Wakulla County, in that they will be anywhere from 12 to 15,000 people in St. Mark on Saturday, September the 20th. There's lots of exhibits, lots of vendors, an unbelievable amount of good food, and there's some really, really good music. So I encourage you to go out there and spend your money, take your family, let them spend your money, and have a good time.
I agree that it's a great thing, but I think David may take exception that it's the
Tropic Worm Grunting Festival's
best one in the county.
I didn't say it was the best. Let's not get that confused. It's the largest.
Oh, you gave the wrong date.
October
So you give the right date.
Saturday.
It's this Saturday, October 20th.
Please excuse me. It's October the 20th. You can't go back. It's October the 20th. This coming Saturday.
Chuck, when I talked to Chuck about this a little while ago, he said this thing is really taking off. I mean, it's lots and lots.
There's going to be a parade this year.
Yeah. Really?
I don't know where they all park, but
yeah, there's going to be a parade. Commissioner Arts?
We have a membership in the Florida Association of Counties, which they're in essence our lobbyists to help alert us when there's legislation that might be harmful to the county and our citizens, and it's their job to represent counties. So I just wanted to see if any of you are tuned in to that FACT is trying to alert counties about one of the amendments that's on the ballot. I get lots of different groups telling me vote no for this or vote no for that or whatever, but FACT is, we look to them for accurate guidance on issues that could impact us. And
Just the
you can go.
non-homestead.
Yeah, it's Amendment 4 that they've hired people to do a pretty detailed analyses. They estimate that it's going to impact Florida's local communities by $1.7 billion over 4 years. And they actually have a county-by-county breakdown, and we don't do quite so bad as some of the others, but their estimate for us is we'll lose $200,000 in 2013, $300,000 in 2014, and 2015 another $300,000, and in 2016 $400,000.
That's
That's
when you
fair
say
enough.
loss. I don't
Reduction in
Well,
revenue.
Well, it's
It'll be
a
reduced
5%.
property tax revenue.
It's kind of like the Save Our Homes, I guess. It reduces the increase to 5% a year. Is that correct?
Right.
I don't see how we can lose money. I don't understand.
Well, it's revenue that we would otherwise be getting.
If
We
jack
won't
their
get. We won't
property
get.
taxes up.
Right.
Kept them the same.
So anyway, I'm just encouraging you. You might want to look at some of what the Florida Association of Counties they've got some.
We all got that email in.
Okay, well, I just wasn't sure people
I did,
had looked at it because,
Counties and cities across the state are coming out of Kansas.
I went and
Especially Amendment 4.
I talked to Donna's Department about it.
okay, well, what they're predicting is that if they view this as deeply flawed and that it will result in tax rate increases for large numbers of Florida residents, competitive disadvantages for new businesses and expanding businesses while producing little, if any, economic value. And so I just wanted to make sure everyone was aware of that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? Entertain a motion to adjourn? Okay. All right, all adjourned.